Trade wars are messy, costly, and unpredictable, and the one between the US and China has been a fierce battleground. Trump's tariff war with China, initially seen as a move to strengthen the US economy, is proving to have a ripple effect few anticipated. As tariffs rise and tensions mount, the reality is sinking in. This war may not end in victory for the US. This script explores the twists, setbacks, and unexpected costs of the trade war that has shaken global markets. The Trump administration initiated tariffs on Chinese imports with a clear agenda to protect American industries and reduce the trade deficit. The trade gap, or the difference between what the US imports from China and what it exports there, had been steadily widening for years. Trump saw this as a threat to American manufacturing and jobs, setting the stage for a trade war that he believed could correct this imbalance. Initially, these tariffs were intended to force China to make structural changes to its economy, opening up to fairer competition and loosening control over certain industries. But China wasn't going to back down without a fight. As soon as the US imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, China responded in kind, targeting American products from soybeans to electronics. This tit-for-tat strategy led to a standoff, escalating the trade war with no clear end in sight. While some believed the US would have the upper hand, it quickly became apparent that both economies were feeling the strain. The effects of the tariffs rippled across industries, raising production costs and cutting into profit margins for businesses in both countries. As tariffs increased, so did prices. American consumers started to notice the higher costs on goods, ranging from household items to electronics, with prices rising by as much as 25% in some cases. For many American families, these higher prices were hard to ignore, hitting wallets and altering buying habits. Many businesses that relied on Chinese goods faced tough choices: absorb the extra costs or pass them along to customers. For smaller businesses especially, this often meant taking a hit to profits, reducing workforce, or even shutting down. At the same time, American farmers found themselves directly in the crossfire. Agriculture was one of the first sectors targeted by China, specifically because of its importance to US exports. Soybean farmers, in particular, saw their primary market suddenly evaporate as China imposed tariffs on American crops, choosing to source from other countries instead. Despite efforts from the US government to offer subsidies and bailouts to struggling farmers, the damage was undeniable. Many farmers who supported the trade war initially were left questioning its benefits as they faced financial strain. In manufacturing, companies found themselves caught in a squeeze as well. For years, American companies had relied on Chinese suppliers for affordable parts and raw materials, a crucial factor in keeping production costs low. But with tariffs making those goods more expensive, many companies considered relocating operations outside of China, or even back to the US. This shift was costly and time-consuming, requiring companies to navigate new logistics and supply chain challenges. In the end, the impact on American manufacturing was mixed, with some companies benefiting and others struggling to stay competitive. As the trade war continued, the global market began to feel the effects. Other countries watched as the two economic superpowers clashed, uncertain of how it would impact their own economies. Some countries saw an opportunity, stepping in to fill the gaps left by American and Chinese goods, while others feared the instability could trigger a recession. Financial markets fluctuated, reacting to each new development in the trade talks. Investors grew increasingly nervous, wary of the long-term impact of this ongoing standoff on global growth. In China, the government was equally determined to withstand the pressure. Chinese leaders adopted various strategies to weather the impact, from supporting domestic industries to diversifying trade partnerships. Although the tariffs initially disrupted parts of the Chinese economy, The country quickly adapted, pivoting to new markets and finding ways to support businesses hit hardest by the trade war. China's resilience was a signal to the world that it was willing to endure economic hardship rather than compromise on its long-term vision. One of the unexpected outcomes of the trade war has been the acceleration of China's efforts to become more self-reliant. By investing in technology and innovation, China has reduced its dependency on American technology, moving forward with ambitious plans for its tech sector. This shift has spurred rapid advancements in areas like artificial intelligence and renewable energy, where China now competes aggressively with the US. Rather than weaken China's economy, the trade war, in some respects, has driven it to strengthen its own industries. Back in the US, the impact of the trade war also spilled into politics. As the election season approached, voters began questioning the efficacy of Trump's approach. While some staunchly supported the president's stance on China, others worried about the long-term repercussions. The administration's narrative about a win in the trade war became harder to support as Americans dealt with the fallout. The growing divide reflected a shift in public opinion, with many realizing that the trade war was far from a simple victory for the US. Economists pointed to the data, noting that the trade deficit with China hadn't improved as expected. In fact, in some cases, the deficit had actually widened, casting doubt on whether the tariffs were achieving their intended goals. Analysis showed that while certain industries might benefit, the broader impact on the economy was less clear. Many experts argued that the tariffs had inadvertently hurt the very industries they were meant to protect, disrupting global supply chains and creating uncertainty that dampened business investment. Meanwhile, the trade war affected more than just economics. It also impacted US-China relations at a diplomatic level. Tensions grew not only over trade, but also over technology, security, and regional influence, leading to a broader rivalry. The trade war, initially centered on economic issues, quickly became a part of a larger struggle for global influence. This shift marked a new chapter in US-China relations, one that extended beyond tariffs and into a geopolitical competition with far-reaching consequences. As Trump's term continued, pressure mounted for a resolution, but each attempt at negotiation revealed how complex the issues truly were. Trade officials from both countries met repeatedly, but disagreements over key points led to breakdowns in talks. Trump's administration remained firm on its demands, while China held its ground, unwilling to concede on issues it viewed as critical to its economic sovereignty. The prospect of a lasting agreement seemed increasingly distant, leaving businesses and investors in a state of prolonged uncertainty. With each failed negotiation, businesses became more anxious about the future. Many had hoped for a swift end to the tariffs, but as the months passed, they were forced to adapt to the reality of a prolonged trade war. This uncertainty influenced everything from hiring decisions to expansion plans as companies held back, wary of the unpredictable landscape. The longer the trade war dragged on, the more it became clear that the effects would last far beyond Trump's presidency. Today, the legacy of the trade war remains a topic of intense debate. While some argue that it was a necessary stand against unfair trade practices, others see it as a costly gamble with limited returns. The landscape of US-China trade has changed, but the question remains, was the trade war worth it? As businesses and policymakers continue to assess the long-term impact, one thing is clear. The trade war has reshaped the global economy in ways that may take years to fully understand. If you found this breakdown of the US-China trade war informative, hit that like button to show your support. Share your thoughts on whether you think the trade war was worth it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more insightful content.